Hi everyone and welcome to English for You. I'm Pat.
And I'm Ben.
So today's article is all about how we might kind of take care of the pets that we have in our homes. So do you have any pets right now?
No, I used to have a pet. I had a Chihuahua.
Okay. Maybe our students don't know what a Chihuahua is. You better explain that one.
Exactly. Well, a Chihuahua is it's probably the smallest dog that you can think of. I had a long-haired Chihuahua, so it was actually really furry, but they are a pain to manage. They are very rowdy. It's hard to make them sit down, and they are one of a kind. You'll have a good time if you try to control and train a Chihuahua.
Very energetic
Very
dogs,
energetic.
Are they noisy?
They are very noisy. They bark at everyone.
Okay.
You have to keep him at home. You cannot let the Chihuahua run around, as he will probably run away.
Really? So you take them for walks?
I do.
But always on a lead. You don't let them off the lead.
He has escaped 2 or 3 times, and we're fortunate we got him back.
Wow.
Yeah.
My family has always had cats, which is the animal we're going to be talking about in today's article. There were cats when I was growing up, cats when I was a bit older. My parents still have cats now. It's just what I'm kind of used to having. Dog-wise, it's only my grandma's dog that I've ever kind of really gotten on with. It was a West Highland Terrier, which, if you've seen the dog food Caesar, it's the dog that's on that dog food can.
I've not seen that, but I would have to check that out.
Yeah, it's a little kind of white thing. They're pretty fun. They're quite energetic. They're pretty friendly. They're not the smartest dogs unless they're kind of killing rats. That's kind of what they're for. But otherwise, it wasn't the brightest dog, that one, my grandma's one. Okay, so this article is about pets and what we need to do with them. So let's read through the article and find out what kind of animals and what we're doing to look after them.
Let's go.
Reading.
Claws and Laws, Keeping Cats Happy. You've just adopted a cute little kitten, but then you come home to find the curtains torn up and your favorite chair shredded. You pick him up and, ow, he just scratched you. Those claws are sharp. This is why many people get their cats declawed. To do this, a veterinarian removes the claws and stitches the wounds. Some bones in the paw must be cut. Therefore, declawing a cat is like cutting off the tip of a person's finger. Animal rights promoters say this practice is cruel. Many think that declawing makes life frustrating for cats, and it blocks their natural senses. Declawing has been illegal for years in Europe and in many countries around the world. Now, in the U.S., New York has become the first state to ban declawing. Other states are discussing whether they should pass similar laws. After all, it's easier for people to teach their new kittens how to use a scratching post, and it will make the cats happier too.
So our article begins by saying, you've just adopted a cute little kitten. So it's interesting that the writer has chosen to use the word adopted here, because adopted means you've probably gone to maybe an animal shelter and you've decided that here's an animal that needs a home and I'm going to take it home. You haven't gone to a pet shop and bought it. And really, this is kind of a better way to get your animals. Your Chihuahua, was that adopted?
It was not. It should have been adopted. That would have been a better kind of care to take care of these animals that don't have a home.
Exactly.
But we did buy him for a pretty expensive price. Adoption is a good thing to do.
Yeah, most of my cats have either been a family's friend's cat had kittens and we decided to take 1 or 2, or some my mum and dad have rescued from a shelter when they needed a home. Okay, so you've adopted a cute little kitten. Of course, that's a baby cat.
Yeah.
But then you come home to find the curtains torn up and your favorite chair shredded.
Oh no, what happened?
Well, let's first look at the phrasal verb torn up, which is, it's tear up. It's the past, or PP is torn. So tear, and make sure you say tear and not tear. To tear up is to damage or destroy something by using force to pull it apart or kind of using sharp items to cut pieces off or make holes in it. We normally think of tearing up as something that's done with our hands, our nails, or kind of animals' hands and feet, just kind of really ripping into it.
I know certain kind of dogs can tear furniture.
Yeah, cats too.
Yeah.
So what about the word shred?
So when we go to shred, this means to tear to pieces. Now, it's often from a bite by an animal in which all of the pieces are on the ground. He just put his teeth into the furniture and started shaking his head back and forth. So if something is shredded, then it has a big mark in it that looks like it has been torn or cut off. Now, normally animals shred furniture or objects to pieces by biting on something really hard and then just shaking their head and just everything falls off as there's a big mark in the furniture.
Yeah, they can use their claws as well, which we'll kind of mention a bit later with these cats. So the cat has obviously torn up the curtains. It's ripped into the chair. This does happen. So you go, oh, stop that cat. And the article says you pick him up and ow!
Oh, wow.
He just scratched you.
Oh, that happens a lot. I always get scratched by cats, especially when picking them up.
Yeah, some cats don't like to be picked up except when they want it, so they will scratch you. But let's look at that phrasal verb, pick up. To pick up, in this case, means to lift someone or something off the ground. We can also use pick up to mean to collect someone from somewhere, like pick someone up at school or pick somebody up from the airport, which means to go and collect them and bring them usually home. But here, pick up means lift it up. Pick up a cat, pick up a child, pick up a bag, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But when you pick the cat up, he scratches you.
Oh, no, happens every time. Now, that brings us to scratch, which means to use one's fingernails, and in one fast motion, it's sharply and quickly the cat or something like that, an animal that has big teeth or claws can quickly dig into one's skin. Now we can scratch something that is as itchy as a mosquito bite or scratch really anywhere that doesn't feel right.
Yeah, we call it an itch, and if there's an itch, we tend to scratch it. But here the cat is scratching you to say, get off me, basically.
Exactly.
And as the article says, those claws are sharp. Now, the word claw is one of the key words for this article. A claw is a curved, pointed nail on each. It's kind of like the finger or toe of birds or lizards or a lot of animals. So if we think of lions and tigers and big animals like that, they use their claws to hunt with. They will often, and then once they've killed the animal, rip up the animal so they can eat it. For example, the lion used its claws to kill the zebra and eat its meat.
Now, as we look at the article, this is why many people get their cats declawed. Now, this brings us to declawed, which means if you put D in front of something, it means to take it out. Thus, with the claws, the person is taking out the claws. That's why we have D in front of it. Now, mostly it's to not have the cat's nails so sharp.
I'm thinking of other verbs that you could put D in front of to kind of give it the opposite meaning. Like it's a negative prefix. So if you think of the word organize, if you organize something, you put it in a good order. If you deorganize something, you just mess it up.
Or devalue something. If one has a high value, like a gold necklace or something, and then it gets
devalued.
Devalued if there's scratches on it or mud on it.
Yeah, that means it would be worth less money because it's been devalued. Okay, so as Ben mentioned, declawing is removing a cat's claws, and the article explains how this happens. We see, to do this, a veterinarian removes the claws and stitches the wounds. Now, the word veterinarian looks pretty long, but you'll find that almost all native speakers just use vet instead. We shorten it to vet, V-E-T. So we take the cat to the vet. We took our dog to the vet. A vet is an animal doctor. It's someone who has gone to college, university, and studied normal medicine, but specifically animal medicine, and knows how to not just take care of animal illnesses, but also about births, deaths, even animal behavior.
Yeah, now this takes us to the word stitch. Now, a stitch is like a Band-Aid, except it is sewn on a string, or it's actually sewn into your skin, actually, on a string, and it's laced into our skin to tighten up the wound. For example, the boy had to get stitches after he was hit in the head by a baseball, so that must really hurt. Think of a stitch as having something, a part of your body, cracked open, and then a needle with a string sews it together, the pieces, so your skin can come back together. Now, this wound was bleeding and the skin had come apart.
Yeah, so there Ben used the word stitch as a noun. And of course, we can have a stitch as a noun is the actual kind of material that's put in to sew the wound up. As a verb, we could also say the boy had to get his wound stitched, which would be how. Have you had stitches ever?
I've never had stitches, so I do not know the feeling. Have you, Pat?
When I was about 3 years old, I fell off a chair and cut my bottom lip open.
Oh.
And my mum had to take me to the hospital to get stitched. And it was my own fault because I was trying to get my mum's attention when she was feeding my little brother. I fell off. There was blood everywhere. But that was when I was about 3, so I'm too young to remember the feeling of getting stitched.
Yeah.
So I can't really describe it. I think they would have probably used some kind of chemical so I didn't feel anything.
Yeah,
Maybe knock me out, put me to sleep, something like
true.
that.
Yeah.
So they cut the animal's claws, they stitch up the wound. And we also see in the article that some bones in the paw must be cut. So they're not just it's not like cutting your nails when they just kind of cut the sharp ends off. They're actually cutting the cat's bones.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, that's definitely more than I thought it would be. I almost hurt for the cat then, yeah. Now, going back to the article, therefore, declawing a cat is like cutting off the tip of a person's finger.
Ow.
Oh, yeah, that would be very hurting. Yeah, that would hurt a lot. Now, as we look at the word tip, the tip is the topmost part of something. Now, there is an example of a saying called the tip of the iceberg or the highest point of something. Now, you could say the tip of the mountain, but all in all, it's what the top of something is. The tip it can be the best of something. Yeah, tip, the very top.
When we say the tip of our finger, we basically mean the end part with the nail on it. So that is what declawing a cat is. And as we've said, it sounds pretty painful. It sounds not nice at all. And animal rights promoters agree. We see in the article that animal rights promoters say this practice is cruel. So here the word practice means the normal or the expected way of doing something. We could, for example, say something is common practice, which means it's definitely the most common way, the way we do something the most often. Here's another example of that. When Diana trained to become a teacher, she learned about different classroom practices, which is the way of doing things in a classroom.
Yeah, classroom practice is making sure all the students are organized, are sitting down listening, and just behaving them in a certain way. Yeah, so this brings us back to the article, which says, many think that declawing makes life frustrating for cats, and it blocks their natural senses. That could have some sense to it. Yeah, I guess if you lose a part of your bones, then I guess it makes you feel a little off.
Maybe they can't really touch and feel things.
Yeah, exactly. So that definitely would impact their senses. Yeah. Now, that brings us to the word frustrating. Now, this means to be troubled about something. Now, we could be frustrated with a question on a test or find something frustrating with something we don't know the answer to. Like we could be looking at through our book and say, oh, this is so frustrating. I cannot find the right answer. Now, an example sentence could be, it was frustrating to answer the question on the exam as we didn't talk about it much in class.
Yeah, it's kind of, you're bothered, it's really difficult, you're just like, this doesn't seem to work right. So that is why animal rights promoters don't like it. We also see in the article that declawing has been illegal for years in Europe and in many countries around the world. So they've just said, you can't do that to cats. It's not allowed.
Yeah, definitely. It helps the cats, make them feel more natural, I guess, so that everything attached. Now, back to the article. Now, in the U.S., New York has become the first state to ban declawing. Wow, so they're taking a step in the game there. Now, this takes us to ban, which means to have something not be allowed anymore. For example, in the past, alcohol was banned in the United States, and even in some countries, guns are banned.
That is right. So the state of New York has said, okay, no more declawing. You can't do that anymore. And we see in the article that other states are discussing whether they should pass similar laws.
Now, this takes us to discuss, which means to talk about in great length. Now, to discuss means something is a little more important than just talking. So you wouldn't discuss about, how are the Reds doing, or how is a certain baseball team doing? Discuss is more very big, very important. It's when ideas come out and more thought is taking place. Now, we can talk about how our days went, but for more important things, such as the details to a lawyer case, how the president is doing, or how two countries are in war. Now, we can use discuss to put more emphasis on a bigger deal than what is taking place. So, for example, we can say, in class, we discussed the issues of uniforms in school and Facebook personal information privacy.
Okay, now in that sentence, we use the phrase discussing whether. Now, whether is the grammar point we're focusing on for this article, and whether generally means the same as if, and indicates that a choice is being made, or a situation and the result of it is uncertain. A lot of the time, whether can be replaced by if, especially if the word it begins a noun clause as it does in the article. So we could say, I'm wondering whether I should take my next vacation in Japan. And in this sentence, we can use if instead of whether. I'm wondering if I should take my next vacation in Japan. However, when the noun clause beginning with whether is the subject of a sentence, we can't use the word if instead. For example, if we say whether the typhoon changes direction or not could affect the country a great deal. Now, in this case, we couldn't use if the typhoon changes direction or not could affect the country a great deal. It doesn't quite work. So you can look in our magazine for some more examples of how we can use the word whether. Here's another example of how we can. Betty is wondering whether to eat noodles or rice for dinner. And in this case, we can't change it to if.
Yeah, and as we look in the article, it says, after all, it's easier for people to teach their new kittens how to use a scratching post. Now, let's take us to the word after all. Now, after all is used to tell what something is going to be like. It explains the result of something. For example, I could say, let's wake up later tonight. After all, we're not going to get any sleep the next 2 days. It is used very similar to a cause and effect relationship, where after all explains what the effect will be like. Now, here's another example. Let's go to the zoo tomorrow. After all, tomorrow is the last day it's open for the fall.
And in this sentence, we also talked about using a scratching post. Now, a post is a long, solid piece of wood or metal that's set kind of end to end in the ground. So think of a lamp post or a signpost. A scratching post is something that stands up and a cat can scratch for fun and also to remove material from their claws. If a cat learns to use this, then that cat shouldn't scratch the furniture too much, though in my experience the cats will still do it whenever they feel like it. So looking at an example for the word post, we can say there is a sign on the post next to the hiking trail that tells people which way to go. And for scratching post, we could say our scratching post has a toy mouse on it that our cat likes to play with.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. Which leads us back to the article, and it will make the cats happier too, which it sure seems like it.
Yes, the cats without claws they'll be a lot happier. Maybe they'll still scratch the furniture sometimes, so you just kind of have to train them not to as best you can. Well, that brings us to the end of the article, so let's now go to our For You chat question.
All right.
For You chat.
All right, so our For You chat question is, some people think it is necessary to declaw a cat. Now, some people think it isn't. So, Pat, what do you think?
Well, I'm from Europe, where, as we said in the article, it's not legal to declaw cats. So, for me, I've always had cats with claws, which means, yes, I've been scratched, and sometimes the cats scratch the furniture. But that's kind of what you get if you get a pet cat. It's like one of those things you just have to put up with if you want to be a cat owner. So I would say it is not necessary to declaw a cat. The whole idea just seems strange to me because it's just not something we would ever do.
Yeah.
And also, cats like to go out and hunt. The cats my family had, they would kill birds, they would kill mice, they would kill spiders in the house, which I was quite happy about because I don't like spiders. So, you know, that kind of means the cat can be what the cat is, you know, something that hunts and will kill things. But that's a cat. That's what you get. So I would definitely say don't declaw your cats. It's not necessary. What would you say?
Well, I'm the opposite. I would say I would like to declaw a cat.
Really?
Just for people when they, especially strangers, when they see a cat. It's kind of hard for them to, I guess, pick the cat up, or if they want to play with them, to get scratched all the time.
Well, it's a cat.
It is a cat.
Get
so
ready
I guess,
for that, really.
Yeah, especially for kids. I think that's what I'm more concerned about, kids trying to pick up a cat.
I suppose if you had a very young baby, you would want to try and be very careful with it. But I think there are other ways, and declawing seems a little bit sort of extreme.
Yeah.
I think there might be ways you can make the cat's claws less sharp, and I think even a scratching post will maybe make them less sharp. But it's not something I would want to have happen to a cat. But that takes us to the end of the article. We're out of time for today. Thanks for listening, everybody. For English for You, I'm Pat.
And I'm Ben.
We'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Claws and laws. Keeping cats happy. You've just adopted a cute little kitten. But then you come home to find the curtains torn up and your favorite chair shredded. You pick him up and, ow! He just scratched you. Those claws are sharp. This is why many people get their cats declawed. To do this, a veterinarian removes the claws and stitches the wounds. Some bones in the paw must be cut. Therefore, declawing a cat is like cutting off the tip of a person's finger. Animal rights promoters say this practice is cruel. Many think that declawing makes life frustrating for cats, and it blocks their natural senses. Declawing has been illegal for years in Europe and in many countries around the world. Now, in the US, New York has become the first state to ban declawing. Other states are discussing whether they should pass similar laws. After all, it's easier for people to teach their new kittens how to use a scratching post, and it will make the cats happier too.
Vocabulary Review.
Claw. The bear used its claws to catch a fish that was swimming up the river. Stitch. My mother stitched up the hole in my jeans so I could wear them again. Practice. Throwing used toilet paper in a garbage can is a common practice in Asia. Frustrating. It's frustrating when you find the clothes you want to buy, but the store doesn't have your size. Discuss. The company's managers are discussing the number of new stores they should open next year. Post. The sign was nailed to a wooden post that stuck out of the ground.
字汇小补帖
Shred. Scratch. Veterinarian. Vet. Ban.
以上节目是由活用空中美语制作。 活用空中美语杂志，请洽询全国各大书店。如欲索取试听教材，请来电02-2364-4000 02-2364-4000，或上网查询，网址是 www.english4u.net www.english4u.net